right, good morning or afternoon or evening, or whatever you're doing this lesson, everyone. Um, I know this is weird. It's first lesson. It's a little wonky. We're in our new normal, but I just want to make sure that everyone is learning and doing everything that they need to do. Again, this is at your own pace. I have some kind of pacing guide set out for you. So as you go through the lessons, make sure you're understanding the material. Feel free to pause, rewind, go back, see it again. If you miss some notes, I always have the notes page up on Schoology, so you can access those there as well. But you can have your notes page, the ones that we always have in class. I have them on available for you. You can fill them out on your computer, you can fill them out on your phone by writing on them, or print them off and do your own notes that way. After the video's done and you want to come back and you need to do some extra practice, I have that available for you as well, and I'll make sure you know how to get that as well. Get some videos for you, and then if you have questions, I'll have a discussion board up. You can answer the questions on there. Put anything you have that you are confused about on there, or just send me an email and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So let's start with our lesson. Unit 12. We had left the trimester 2 doing a trimester 2 review right after unit 11. We're going to get into what's called sequences. The two types of sequences we work with are arithmetic, and I know that sounds a little weird because we're used to saying arithmetic, but we say this arithmetic, and geometric, and we're going to figure out what that is. We have different vocab with this, and those two would be great vocab words to remember. We're also going to work with terms. That's going to be a vocab word for us. We've worked with terms before, but it's going to pop up here again. So let's start looking at here. We can be successful in our lesson today and meet our success criteria if we can independently identify if a sequence is a arithmetic or geometric, or it could be neither. It could be neither of those two. And then we're going to look at the terms inside those sequences. So let's start here. We're going to start with arithmetic sequences. An arithmetic sequence is when you add or subtract by the same number. Okay, so I'm going to take the first term. This would be term 1, term 2, term 3, term 4, and we can go on forever. Okay, we're going to figure out with the first term, and then what do I do to the first term to get to my second term? In this case, we're looking at 14 plus or minus. We're looking at arithmetic. We're doing add or subtract. Plus or minus what gets me 16? Well, I'm getting bigger here, so I'm going to go up. So I'm going to say plus 2. 14 plus 2 is 16. And then 16. 16, what do I have to do to get to 18? Well, in this case, I need to add 2. 16 plus 2 is 18. 18 plus 2 is 20. And if you notice, we're doing adding, and we're adding the same number every time. So what we would say is the rule is plus 2. And you could say that, well, if I'm getting bigger, I have to add. If I'm getting smaller, I have to subtract. In 99% of the cases, that's going to be true. But not always. Just be aware that just because it sounds like it's going to be true all the time doesn't mean that it always is true. Okay, let's go to our next one. 32, 28, 24, 20. From term 1 to term 2, what do I have to do? Well, I'm getting smaller, and typically when we get smaller, we have to subtract. Well, 32 minus what equals 28? Well, 32 minus 4 equals 28. Same thing, 28 minus 4 equals 24, and 24 minus 4 equals 20. So our rule would be minus 4. Okay? We can keep practicing. Check this, negative 20, negative 15, negative 10, negative 5. Looks like we're getting bigger. Okay, let's talk about how do I get from negative 20 to negative 15. Well, negative 20 plus 5 is 15. Negative 15. Negative 15 plus 5 is negative 10. Negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5. Well, what's the next term? This is term 1, 2, 3, 4. Term 5 is going to be negative 5 plus 5, which is 0. My rule is plus 5. I add the same number every time. And then finally, term 1 is 70, term 2 is 67. What do I do? Well, 70 minus 3 is 67. 67 minus 3 is 64. 64 minus 3 is 61. My rule is minus 3. That is arithmetic sequencing. Okay? I have to add or subtract the same number every time to figure out my next term. Well, let's look at geometric. Geometric sequencing is going to be multiply or divide by the same number. Okay. Let's look at your papers, our notes. Well, I'm going to go from 2 to 4, term 1 to term 2. How do I get from 2 to 4? Well, we're multiplying or dividing. We're in geometric. Okay, so can I divide a number to get there? Well, let's try multiplication first. 2 times what is 4? 2 times 2. 4 times what is 8? 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times what is 16? 8 times 2 is 16. So my rule is going to be times 2. Okay? So we're trying to identify what is our geometric sequence by either multiplying or dividing. Again, it's not always going to be if I'm getting bigger, I'm multiplying. If I'm getting smaller, I'm dividing, because negative numbers come into play here. And so we want to be careful about what we're saying, whether it's, oh, I'm getting bigger, I'm just multiplying. Not always the case. Okay, 20 to 10. How do I get, well, I can minus 10. 20 minus 10 is 10. What's 10 minus 10? 0, not 5. That doesn't work. Oh, right. We're in geometric, so we got to work with multiplication or division. Well, how do I get from 20 to 10? Well, 20 divided by 2 is 10. What's 10 divided by 2? 5. What's 5 divided by 2? 2.5. My rule is divide by 2. That's all it is. You're just trying to figure out what is my sequence. How does it go from one to the next? Okay, let's try again. 4, 12, 36, 108. Well, how do I get from 4 to 12? My term 1 to term 2. I can multiply by 3. Let's check to see if they work for all of them. 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36. 36 times 3 is 108. Well, if you don't believe me, let's check. 36 times 3. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. Oh, it is 108. So our rule for this geometric sequence is multiply by 3. And finally, our last one here, we have term 1 is 100, term 2 is 20. How do I get from 100 to 20? Well, if that doesn't help, let's try to go to 20 to 4. How can I get from 20 to 4? We don't have to go term 1 to term 2. Let's look at term 2 to term 3. 20 divided by what is 4? Or 4 times what is 20? That's 5. Let's check here. What's 100 divided by 5? Well, let's check. 100 divided by 5. 5 can go into 10 2 times, which is 10. 0, bring our 0 down in 0. So what's left? A 0 there. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And then we figured out our rule is divide by 5. Okay, that is geometric sequencing. In arithmetic sequencing, we talked about adding or subtracting by the same number. In geometric sequencing, we work with multiply or divide by the same number. And let's do some classification. Next page in your notes looks like this. We have a T-chart. The T-chart wants us to put these numbers down in this box here into a T-chart either under arithmetic or geometric. We need to identify if they are neither, which is a possibility. If they are a neither option, we just want to circle that option and don't put it anywhere on there. Okay, let's check. Let's work with our first one here. 1,110. Well, how do I get from 1,000 to 100? I could subtract 900, but 100 minus 100 doesn't work. Okay, so let's try division. If I divide 1,000, what can I get? What can I divide 1,000 by to get to 100? Well, I can divide that by 10. Or I can write it a different way and say 1,000 divided by 10, cross out my zeros, I get 100 over 1, which is just 100. And 100 divided by 10 is 10. So I'm going to put that in my geometric side because I use division. And division and multiplication goes geometric. Done with that one. Try another one. -3, 6, -12. This is one of those cases where I said, just because I'm getting smaller or bigger, I'm doing subtraction or addition. I'm getting bigger, I'm doing multiplication. It's not always the case. If you look at our numbers, -3, 6. From -3 to 6, I'm getting bigger. From 6 to -12, I'm getting smaller. So it kind of goes back and forth. When you see that, you want to think multiplication and division. Because when I multiply by a negative, it changes my sign. When I divide by a negative, it's going to change the sign. So let's check. Let's multiply first. Well, from -3 to 6, -3 times what equals 6? Okay, 6 divided by -3 equals x. Miss Miller made a mistake. It's coming back. 6 divided by -3 is -2. Okay? -3 times -2 is 6. So we're going to multiply by -2. -3 times -2 is 6. 6 times -2 is -12. So that's another geometric case. We're multiplying by -2. -3, 6, -12. If I multiplied -12 by -2, I would get a positive 24. I can keep going. Done with that one. Okay, let's try our next one. Well, it's actually, I'm going to leave some of these for you to keep practicing. I'm going to jump down to this one here with 1, 4, 9, 16, and 25. Okay, if we get to 1 to 4, I can add 3. From 4 to 9, I can add 5. From 9 to 16, I can add 7. From 16 to 25, I'm adding 9. And that doesn't, with our sequencing, we have to use the same number every time. That doesn't work. That's the different number every time. Well, let's check multiplication. 1 times 4 gives me 4. 4 times 4 gives me 16, not 9. So that one doesn't work either. And this is a case where neither would be my answer. So I would just circle it. They wouldn't go on either side of my rule. Let's try one with fractions. Let's do this one here. I'm going to do a little erasing to give you some space. And give me some space. Okay. We have 4, 13 over 3, 14 over 3, 5, and 16 over 3. This is a case where we're going to have to change our numbers to improper fractions. 4 to get with a denominator of 3, because that's what everything is so far. 13 over 3, 14 over 3. I'm going to skip 5 and go to 16 over 3. We want to make all of these numbers over 3. So we have to multiply. 4 times my denominator of 3 gives me 12. 12 over 3, 13 over 3, 14 over 3. 5 times 3 gives me 15 over 3. So how do I get from 12 thirds to 13 thirds to 14 thirds to 15 thirds to 16 thirds? Well, I'm just adding 1/3 every time. 12 plus 1 is 13, 13 plus 1 is 14, 15, 16, and so on. So I can say that this one is going to go on this side, plus 1/3 as 4, 13 thirds, 14 thirds, 15 thirds, 16 thirds. This was actually 5, so we can put 5 there as well. And we did that one. I want you to practice the rest of those. If you have questions on them, you can let me know. That's it for that lesson. Okay? If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Send an email, write a discussion question, anything like that, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. We can even get on the conferencing section. I'll show you how to do that. And you can say, Mr. Miller, I'd like to kind of talk face to face, and we can figure out a time to make that work as well. Take your time. Don't panic. I'll give you some directions as we go through. It shouldn't be too much hassle. I miss you guys. I hope you're having a great time at home and that you're enjoying your kind of relaxing education portion. Kind of go at your own pace. I'll give you a guideline and when I want some stuff due. Um, enjoy your time. Miss you.